My name is Kim Titchener, as I mentioned before, and I've been working in human-wildlife conflict for 19 years. And one of the species that I absolutely love talking to people about, of course, is cougars. I grew up in Ontario, where we once had cougars. We had the eastern cougar, and they've been extirpated off of the land for over 50 years. We don't have any cougars there anymore. Once in a blue moon, we will get a sighting, and we're like, coming from, but they are not eastern cougars. They are either pets that got released and then decided to come from the States up into Ontario, or we're having some random western cougar that's decided to go for a trip all the way out east and check out Ontario. So tonight's talk, we're going to mainly talk about cougar safety, a little bit on bear safety, just to get you ready to go and get out there in the outdoors. You know, most of us are living in cougar habitat or recreating in habitat where these animals live. And it's really important for you to know how to avoid getting into encounters in the first place. And then, of course, what to do if you get into an encounter. So we always like to remind you, please don't sue us. We are trying our best to provide this information to you with the best information we can find, credible information, but we can't prevent you from being harmed by these animals or killed by them. So it's up to you. Every day that you head outdoors, do everything you can to be proactive and avoid these encounters in the first place. And carry the right equipment to be safe when you're out there. So risk levels are increasing. We are seeing more people that are living, playing, working, recreating in environments where these animals live. Our human population continues to grow and expand into areas where these animals live. And the other side of that is we're also having some species start to expand their ranges. And cougars are actually one of those species, even though they live in so many places, we are seeing them moving into environments that we haven't seen them before or for over 100 years. And so there's a lack of tolerance for them in some of these places, and people just not knowing how to be in those places with these animals. Now, when we look at carnivore attack rates, we do find that about half the time when people do get hurt by these animals or killed by them, they're doing what we call risk-enhancing behaviors. And so we're going to talk a little bit about some of the things you can do to avoid getting yourself into trouble with these animals. And of course, taking wildlife safety training and learning as much as you can before you head outdoors is really important. I really strongly suggest that if you are going to try to learn about these animals, that you go to credible sources such as national parks, state parks, websites, government agencies. Most of them are good and have good information. Canadian federal government, Parks Canada has great information on this stuff, and I do recommend checking out their stuff, and of course ours at RecSafe with Wildlife. So can we coexist with these animals? We do every day, and we don't have cougars running around killing people every day. And in fact, fatalities by cougars are actually extremely rare. We don't see that many people getting killed by these animals. We definitely are seeing more people getting hurt by them. There are definitely more maulings on the landscape, but again, the human population continues to increase and encroach on their habitat. We're going to have more cases. They are a highly elusive animal, and it's not a species that we see very often, and so it scares the bejeebies out of us. And that's something that people say to me all the time. They're like, Kim, you know, I just hear these things like, if you see a cougar, it's the last thing you're ever going to see. And I was like, whoa, that is a scary thing. That's not the way I want to think about it. But I have been out on like Vancouver Island before after reading a book on cougar attacks and been like, oh my gosh, like this is the Mecca, the place where most of them happen. And it does make you feel a little bit scared for sure. But fortunately for us human beings, they love to eat deer. They love deer, they love moose, they love elk. They will sometimes scavenge smaller animals. They'll go after things like coyotes. They have lots on their menu, but human beings are very, very far down on the bottom of that. So those cases are quite rare. I'm not going to have time tonight to show this to you. I absolutely love this, and we'll put it on our YouTube channel as well. It is called The Secret Lives of Mountain Lions, and it's curated by Chris Morgan, and who is an incredible wildlife biologist with an awesome English accent. And he talks all about this amazing research that's been done in Wyoming about cougars, and where they've actually put collars on them, done DNA studies. They've got amazing wildlife camera footage of them, and we actually get to see their lives with us not around and see how maternal they are, how much they love their young, that they're playful, that they're protective. that they mourn, and also that they might be a more social animal than we thought. And we are seeing footage of cougars not related to each other sitting down and feeding on a kill. We are seeing footage of a male and female cougar meeting up, and she's got a kitten, and him sitting down and feeding on that kill with her. So some stuff that we never thought that they would do, but because of wildlife cameras, we're able to see this stuff, and GPS collars on these animals to see how they move across the landscape, and learning a lot more things about them. There is still a ton to learn about these animals that we don't know. So this is this is a bar graph. Some of you might have seen this one. I've done other talks before, and this is looking at the number of large carnivore attacks in North America. From 1955 to 2014, there were 700 attacks. That lime green there, those bars, you can see increasing over time. That's cougar attacks. So we are definitely seeing more cougar attacks over time, and that's increasing as the human population is going up and up. As far as how many people have been attacked in the United States and Canada, between the time period of 1955 and 2014, there were 179 attacks. Most of those victims were children and people that were recreating by themselves, okay? So if you can avoid hiking by yourself, or take lots of precautions when you do, which we'll talk about, and supervise your kids, you're going to greatly reduce the chances of getting yourself into trouble with a cougar. Yes, most of those attacks occurred Vancouver Island, British Columbia mainland, and California. And then these are what we call the risk enhancing behaviors. So these are some of the reasons why we see people get attacked by carnivores. One of the major causes, of course, are children being left unsupervised. So cougars tend to go after children when they're left unsupervised. So that hits hard there with children being left unattended. The other categories aren't applying as much to cougars. Activity at twilight night is also another one. So these animals are more active during those time periods. Cougars are active day and night looking for food. But certainly during that twilight night is going to be when they're going to be much more active looking for that prey species. And there have been a few cases of people approaching cougars with young and then being defensive. It's pretty rare. And generally speaking, we haven't seen too many cases of people actually being attacked where a cougar has been defensive. What we more so see is predatory behavior in cougars. So when people get attacked by cougars, most of the cases involve them predating on people, perceiving them as food, stalking them, and then trying to attack them as a food source. They're not a defensive species, not as a defensive species as we see with grizzly bears, who are highly defensive of their young, highly defensive of their food sources. They don't like being surprised at close range. And certainly we're seeing an increasing number of cases of black bears with cubs, same thing, being defensive as well. But cougars tend to be much more of a predatory animal. Where do they live? Holy cow, they live everywhere. They used to live in a lot more places. And of course, they have over time lost a lot of their habitat, like much of the carnivores. Of course, Eastern Canada, Eastern United States is where they would have been killed off first as Europeans arrived and pretty much went on a killing spree of getting rid of large carnivores. We eventually figured out that maybe we should preserve some land and the wildlife live there, and created national and state and provincial and territorial parks, which is great. And also tried to start setting aside land and starting conservancies and environmental organizations to try to conserve these animals. So in some of these areas, these animals are starting to make a comeback, which is wonderful to see. The United States is home to about 20 to 30,000 cougars, and this is an estimate based on what habitat exists. If you live in Alberta, there's over 2,000 cougars. Again, an estimate, not based on a DNA study. And British Columbia is home to about 3,500. Saskatchewan, for those of you in Saskatchewan, about 350 in that lower part of the province, like Porcupine Hills. Cypress Hills is a biggie for sure. And then as you can see, those little diamonds are places where there have been sightings of them. They only eat meat, they kill or they scavenge for it, they actively stalk their prey, but they don't jump from trees to kill you. That is a myth. It's not true. They hide in trees, yes, but they do not jump from them to kill people. That sounds terrifying, and that does not make me want to go in a forest. They do hunt at all times of day, as I mentioned before. Overall, they do try to avoid people. They don't want to be seen, and they are a very elusive animal. But over time, they will start to get used to human presence, figure out when we're not around as much, when prey species are coming in. So if you're having deer coming into your backyard and licking on a salt lick, there's probably a cougar nearby. You're literally attracting a cougar into your yard. If you have children, that's a really bad idea. We don't want to have these species coming into our communities, coming into our work sites, because that means they're going to be these larger carnivores in tow following them. And not only are cougars going to follow, so are wolves, and we're certainly going to have other species around as well. So areas that really attract cougars are what we call edge habitat. So they like it when there is open forest habitat where there's lots of grasses and delicious foods growing in. That's where the deer and the elk and the moose and the bighorn sheep are feeding. And then of course they hide in the forest edge on either side. And that could be the sides of a trail, that could be the sides of a power line. In where I am in Alberta, we've got pipeline right-of-ways for oil and gas, clear cuts from forestry, well sites from oil and gas, the sides, the edges of big meadowed areas. So think about some of those places where they could be. If you live in cougar habitat and they've created a children's park right adjacent to a really highly forested area, that's a bad idea. And I've seen it. And I'm like, why would you do that? You're just creating this opportunity for them to hide and be able to wait for that prey species to walk by and then sneak up on it and try to kill it. Cypress Hills, Alberta has the densest cougar population in North America, which is kind of nuts. It is the most easterly restored cougar population in North America as well. It's kind of like an island park. There are some people's homes there, and sometimes we do see cases of cougars going underneath people's houses and stalking dogs and killing them there. So sometimes they do go after dogs as well. This is still from a video of a 6-minute video of a young man named Kyle who was trail running in Utah, and he saw these little kittens on the trail, and he's like, oh, bobcat kittens. And so he went running up to video them, and then didn't realize they were cougar kittens. And I wouldn't walk up to or run up to a bobcat kittens either. And then the cougar female came out, and she actually bluff charged him for 6 minutes, trying to make him leave the area and get away from her kittens. So this is highly unusual, but a reminder that any animal that has young can be defensive of it. And of course, don't approach cougar kittens. That's a really bad idea. So how do we avoid these encounters in the first place? It's very similar to what we do with bears. You've got to make tons of noise. Travel in groups when you can. If you have a dog, keep them on leash. It can attract a cougar to you. If you have children, keep them close by. Don't let them run ahead. That can attract a cougar as well. If you are in an area where there is that edge habitat, if you're seeing lots of deer tracks or poops, scats, other ungulate species, hoofed animals, then there's a chance that there are probably going to be some cougars in that area. If there's trapper's bait, livestock, off-leash dogs, all of those things can attract a cougar to where you are. Frequently look up and scan the area. If you sit down on a log for a bit and you're like, oh, this is beautiful, I love this view, every once in a while, stand up, look around, let out a couple hoops and hollers. The last thing you want to do is get misidentified as prey. Watch for signs of cougars, such as their scat, which is in this lower part of this picture here, tracks, and food caches. They do cache their food like bears. It does look pretty different, and I'll show you. Hopefully I have the slide here where I can show you what it looks like. They travel, like, make sure that you do travel in groups, like I said, and year round you're making noise, and year round you're carrying bear spray, and you're like, Kim, bear spray is for bears. And I'm like, yeah, I know, you're right. And it has been studied and used on them in studies. And so we do know that bear spray does work on cougars. Sorry, it does work on black bears, grizzly bears, and polar bears. It's highly effective. And we don't have any studies on cougars. But I have found cases, and I've had people send me video footage of them using bear spray on a cougar. And I will show that to you here momentarily. So as I mentioned, these are some of the things that could really help to reduce the chances. If you have salt licks in your yard and you live in cougar country, please get rid of them. You're just attracting danger for your community, for children that are in that community, by having those deer coming into your yard. Bear spray, this is a scat belt. We're going to give one of these away, and you can put your bear spray in it. It's an easy way to wear bear spray. A lot of us don't wear belts anymore, so we can't wear the traditional holsters. So this can go over top of your jacket, whatever you're wearing. If you're mountain biking, running, whatever you're doing out there, it's just an easy way to wear your bear spray. So we'd highly recommend you wear bear spray on your body. Now, this is a video taken by a guy named Donnie who gave us this video, and he called me up and he said, Kim, I was at work and I was working in a very backcountry setting, and I've actually been to where he was, and this is just a quad trail in the middle of nowhere in northern Alberta, and he was decided to run on this quad trail, and he was on his way back to the camp where he was staying, and they were building a natural gas plant. And you've got to remember, from the perspective of wildlife, if this is an area where there aren't usually people recreating and suddenly someone is running down a quad trail in spandex, what do you think these animals are going to think you are? Right? Like, they may have never seen a human before. They've certainly probably never seen one running. And they're like, what is that? I've got to chase it. Right? And it's going to cause that instinct to chase. There was just an incident, I think yesterday, involving a woman on a bike, and that was in BC. I think it was BC. And she got attacked. She was biking, and all of a sudden there's a cougar chasing her, and it swatted at her. And again, it was a case where that cougar was like, oh my gosh, I think that's food, and ended up going after her. But she ended up being okay. Some people did come to her rescue and managed to scare the cougar off, which is good. In this case, this guy is by himself. He has no cell coverage. He has told nobody where he is. And he is on his way back to the camp, and he sees two cougars run across the trail in front of him. So we're just going to watch this video here for a second.
Okay, so just saw two cougars up here. So finally, 35 years in the making, across the trail in front of me. So got my bear banger out, got my bear spray ready. Almost, there we go. So let's hope we don't have to use anything and they just carry on. Get out of here! Oh, that was scary. Oh man, I can't believe I got that on camera. Okay.
Crazy, right?
Wow. Huh. Let's carry on. I don't think I like the bear spray. Wow. All right, time to go.
So Donnie made it back to the camp. He was totally fine. And I think he started shaking when he got there, because he was like, that realization that if he hadn't got out his bear spray and pulled that safety off, it was literally a second or two after that first cougar launched at him. He sprayed it. The second cougar launched at him. He sprayed it. And he saved his own life that day, and gave us some evidence here that it can work on cougars. I mean, they have mucous membranes just like bears, and it's worth a try. I would much rather you try using bear spray first than try to fight a cougar. That just doesn't sound like fun. And I think it's a good idea. If you see a cougar, give them an opportunity to leave. There's always a chance you can come around a corner and you're like, oh shoot, there's a cougar, and the cougar's like, oh shoot, there's a person, and they back off and they leave the area. But if they start coming towards you, or you notice that there's a cougar stalking you or approaching you, you are going to want to make yourself look big. If you have any children with you, you're going to pick them up or put them behind you. If you have a dog, grab it, leash it up, pull it in. Once that cougar sees that those easy prey options are not available to them, they're going to see now that you're a group. You're going to yell, shout, hey, get out of here. You could throw rocks and sticks, but if you're by yourself, I wouldn't recommend bending over. If you have bear spray, pull it out, get ready to spray. And if they keep coming, you're going to spray them with bear spray. If they make contact, you are going to have to fight back with anything you have, punching at the nose, stabbing at the eyes, doing everything you can to try to stop the attack. Now, last fall, a very young boy, 7-year-old boy, was playing with his friends down by the North Saskatchewan River, just outside of Rocky Mountain House, Alberta. And a cougar was in the bushes, saw that the children were unsupervised, and just decided to pick on that one particular child. Maybe he was the smallest. Grabbed him and unfortunately started to bite his head, broke his jaw, and multiple lacerations to the head. A woman came running grabbed a rock and beat the crap out of the cougar and just kept hitting it repeatedly over the head until it released the child, and she was able to take the child away, get into a vehicle, and of course get them emergency services into hospital. And the little boy survived, and he's doing really well. But what a terrifying thing to happen. And that's the thing, if you are supervising kids, I highly recommend that you have a big stick with you and a can of bear spray. If you have children that play in your yard and your home is adjacent to habitat, whether it's a river or like a power line, or there's some vegetation and there's forest behind your home and you're like, I live in cougar habitat, keep a can of bear spray at the back door, keep a big stick at the back door. And you know, when your kids get older and they're at an age where they're going to be unsupervised, like playing in the yard or walking to their friend's house or playing at the playground with no adults, you need to talk about a plan. What are we going to do if a coyote comes in the yard? What are we going to do if a cougar approaches us? How are we going to behave? You don't want your kids to run. So when they're little, it's totally fine to not talk to them about the fact that these animals can kill them. That's probably not a good idea. But when they get older, grade 4, grade 5, now they're 10, 11, 12 years of age. They're old enough now that you could have that conversation where it's like, okay, if you see a carnivore, you're going to make yourself look big, start yelling and calling for help of an adult. If you have friends with you, everyone's going to group up together and you're going to slowly back away towards safety. And if you can get yourself inside of a building or vehicle, do so. And the last thing we want, like I said, is for these kids to run. All right, I'm sure there are lots of questions about cougars, and we'll talk about it at the end. And we'll focus mostly on the safety kind of questions. If you're interested in learning more about cougar biology, I'm sure we can have a talk on cougar biology at some point. There's lots of amazing cougar biologists. A friend of mine just moved back to Edmonton who was working on a collared cougar study. And I'm like, yes, finish your master's. Let's do this. So she would be a perfect person to come on here. She has collared so many cougars in her career and learned so much about these animals. So she'd be a great speaker. Avoiding bears. Okay. We will answer questions at the end, is I guess my point. So how do we avoid bear encounters in the first place? And that's the biggest thing here. You can go and get yourself a can of bear spray. That's great. And you should carry it and you should wear it on your body, but it's not going to prevent an encounter. You really do have to pay attention to your surroundings. And so making noise frequently, letting out hoops and hollers, traveling with other people. We know that, you know, bear attacks just don't happen when you're in large groups. If you can go out in a group of 4 or more and stay close together, do that. Carry bear spray physically on your body where you can grab it, use it really quickly. Watch for signs of activity. So looking for things like scat, tracks, diggings, overturned logs and rocks. If you see us or smell a dead animal, leave the area and get out that bear spray and be prepared that there might be a bear that comes out charging at you going, this is my food source. Watch your lines of sight. When there's high levels of vegetation, it can be very hard for bears to hear you and to see you. You know, we're dealing with lots of topography going up and down around corners. So hoop and holler as much as you can to let them know you're coming, which gives them an opportunity to know what you are and to get out of your way. If you don't give them that opportunity, you're not making noise, you're going to walk right into a bear, or you're going to have a bear think that you're food and misidentify you and start stalking you. And we don't want that. Other things that can make it hard for bears to know that you're there is if the wind's in the wrong direction, and or if there is a creek or a river and it's running really fast, a bear may not hear you. So you've got to make even more noise when there is things like wind, and of course things like water rushing really fast. So I sometimes find myself yelling so loud that by the time I get back to the trailhead, I almost have no voice. And I would rather lose my voice than have a close range encounter with a bear. I've had too many of them in my life, and I've got much better at making lots of noise since then, and learned a lot of lessons over time. And I don't want people to have those encounters. It's not fun. So if you have kids, I was going to mention, we do have on the RecSafe with Wildlife website, there's lots of downloadable resources, PDFs that you can print, and they go into details, and there's even like a 1-pager that you can print off and then go over all of these things with your kids before they head on the trail, things they can look for, like berry bushes and scat and all of it. It makes it really fun for them and helps to entertain them instead of hearing the, are we almost there yet? Is the hike over? My feet hurt, I'm thirsty, I want a snack. Give them something to focus on, and being part of helping everyone be safe when they're outdoors is a big piece to that. And not only should you be carrying a can of bear spray, everyone in your group needs to carry their own can of bear spray. And if you're going out for a hike next weekend or camping or biking with your friends, make sure that they come and take a course on bear safety. Make sure they learn about this cougar stuff as well. They can jump on our YouTube channel and check out some of the previous classes that we've had. You can go and get yourself a free membership if you don't already at RecSafeWithWildlife.com. We've got a 2-hour course on bear safety, and we've got a 75-minute class on bear spray. And both I highly recommend, and it goes into so much detail and you will learn so many things. We have video footage, interviews with people who have survived bear attacks, people who have actually used bear spray in a bear attack. And no one is more credible at learning and sharing with you the knowledge of how to survive an attack than someone who actually has been through it. And then we are going to have a few giveaways. We're going to go give away a scat belt today. And if you don't win, you can go to scatbelt.com and use the coupon code Kim or the coupon code RecSafe. And it'll all be an email tomorrow. So don't worry, you don't have to write it down. You will get an email with all this information in it. And if you are interested in taking our bear safety course, you'll learn all about bear ecology. You'll learn more details on how to tell if a bear is in the area, what to do in a defensive attack, what to do in a predatory attack. And everyone tonight is getting 20% off, and the coupon code is CougarBear23. And of course, Sarah's going to send you the link in an email tomorrow when she sends out a thank you email. And that is the end of that. We are now going to take questions, and I'm going to leave it on record just because sometimes these questions are so great and it's just so helpful for everyone to be able to learn from this stuff too. So thank you.
Okay. So for cougars, can you use air horns or bear bangers? And I guess you could answer that for bears too.
Yeah, great question. So if you are dealing with an animal that is being predatory, that is stalking you, it is not defensive. It's not got cubs. It's not showing signs of aggression. It's actually stalking you, seems to be following you. You are not, aside from making yourself look big, you absolutely can use an air horn. You could use a bear banger. I would caution you to really understand the differences in behavior, because if you use an air horn or a bear banger on a bear and it's defensive and it's defending its cubs, its food source, or its young, it can elicit an attack, and you've got an increased chances of getting attacked and killed by a bear if you use those products. So you've got to be really careful about when you use those things. And absolutely, if I had a cougar coming towards me, number one, I would get out my bear spray, because we have had some cases where it's worked. And number two, I would also get out an air horn, use that, and try to scare them off with that. Bear bangers are a bit of an iffy issue, because we do see sometimes them starting forest fires, grass fires, going off behind the animal and driving it towards people. So I would recommend learning more about how to use those products and where you're allowed to carry them, because you're not allowed to carry them in national parks. They are illegal. Any incendiary device is illegal in a national park, and it's strongly discouraged in provincial parks and territory parks. And most employers, if you're going to work and you work in bear country, cougar country, they won't let you carry bear bangers. They're not allowed. Mm-hmm. So great question.
Awesome. Someone would like to know, what do you do if you see bear scat, a cache, or something when you're partway through a hike? What should you do? Should you go back to the trailhead, or just be aware of your surroundings and keep going?
You know, this question came up, I feel like at one of our last talks, and it's a great one. So you have now come across something that's a major hazard, not just to you, but anybody else who's going to come along that trail. So as much as it sucks, and you may be on a multi-day trip, you need to back off, get yourself back to the trailhead in an area where you can call and make that call to wildlife officials and let them know there is a carcass on the trail or adjacent to the trail. Because if somebody else comes along that trail and runs into it, they could end up getting killed or severely injured. So we want to just do that for all of our fellow hikers, bikers, and runners out there, and campers, is head back and notify of that. It's the same thing if you had a predatory encounter and you got out of it, you still need to go back to the trailhead, call it in. Like your trip is over. You don't know if that animal is going to continue to stalk you. You could get into a cougar encounter, scare it off. Awesome, great. But now what? You're going to keep going on your trail? You can't. You've got to head back. You've got to call it in. That area needs to be closed because there's a very unsafe animal in that area. Yeah, great question.
This is a good question. What is your advice if you are road cycling and you see a bear eating grass on the side of the road up ahead? This happened to me the other day. This happened to me the other day.
It happens so much. You don't really hear people getting attacked on their bikes when they're on road bikes, but I actually carry my bear spray when I road bike, because you never know. Like, what if you startled it, or what if it's an area that you're going that they aren't usually seeing a lot of bikes. So if you are in an area where where it's very common to road bike, the bears in the area might get used to it and just totally ignore you. But there might also be a bear that's never been there before, and they're like, oh, the grass here is really good. Right, and like, so I would caution you to slow down, get out your bear spray, move to the other side of the road, and slowly try to make your way by if you can, or turn around and head back. It is certainly something where you could get yourself into some trouble, because if they do get surprised, if they had a carcass nearby, if they have cubs nearby, it could entice them into getting aggressive and showing you signs of defense. So be aware of that. That certainly can be a problem. I'm assuming, Sarah, you were able to get by the bear.
Yeah, so it was actually on the Legacy Trail in the town of Banff, which is like a really popular trail. Thousands of people are on that trail every day. So don't think that you're not going to see a bear on a popular trail. You have to just always expect to see one. But yeah, we crossed the road. We just went away from the trail, slowly went by, kept our eyes on the bear, and then called it in to Banff Dispatch, which a lot of people have to do. Yeah. So
that's awesome. And that's another piece. Like, when you do see bears in areas where there is potential for them to get into conflict with people, call it into wildlife officials. Yeah. Let them know.
There's so many good questions.
No.
Someone asked, I accidentally discharged a small amount of my bear spray. Do I need to replace the whole canister, or is it okay to use it as it is now?
Oh, I'm so sorry. I have to tell you, the truth is you have to go buy a new can. So there was a study done and completed in 2020 by Dr. Tom Smith, Jeff York, and a whole bunch of biologists that got together. And one of the things they wanted to look at was, can you test your bear spray? And it turns out you can, but you're now going to lose half the pressure of your can. If you lose the pressure in your can, it's going to slowly leak out. So remember that you've only got 6 to 8 seconds in a regular size can, right? Or 8 to 10 in a bigger size can. So if you lose half that, now you've got way less seconds. And then now we're dealing with potentially for that to like basically start to hiss out over time, since it's now broke the seal. So unfortunately, yeah, I'm so sorry. You are going to have to go get yourself a new can.
Yeah. Sorry, I'm just trying to pick out the best safety related ones that everybody can benefit from. Does it matter about avoiding eye contact or anything like that with bears or cougars?
Such a great question. We don't know. Certainly from observations of wildlife that are interacting with each other, we have noticed, like with bears at like garbage dumps or salmon spawning streams, when they encounter each other, often there's some posturing, and one of the bears will kind of turn its head sideways, its body sideways, and they'll still be watching, but they're kind of trying to show this submissive behavior. So we believe that it's a sign of submission, but we don't have any way to really kind of say for sure that it's going to mean that to them. And so even though you'll see it in some literature saying like use direct eye contact or avoid direct eye contact, we don't really have much to back that up. It's really just a theory. Yeah. Great question.
Okay. We'll just do a couple more. I know there's a lot. How far can a bear or cougar smell or sense you?
Oh, that's such a great question. So bears can have an incredible sense of smell. It's like 7 times greater than a bloodhound. So their sense of smell is incredible. Cougars are probably quite good as well. I haven't heard any kind of fun sayings about how far they can scent, but it's going to be quite far, right? They're going to be good at it. They've got quite a large olfactory nervous system there on the front. Bears have a larger one, of course, and they have incredible sniffers on them. So they're often smelling you way before they see you or hear you when you're out in the bush. But of course, sometimes the wind's in the wrong direction and then they don't know what you are. And if you haven't and making a lot of noise, they'll be really confused. We're like, what is that, right? So it goes back to, we got to keep making tons of noise when we're out there, just in case they don't catch a scent of us.
All right. Oh my gosh. Where do you find the numbers to call wildlife officials? Google. You can Google, I don't know where you are, but for example, like Kananaskis dispatch is different than Banff dispatch here in Alberta. So just Google that number and it'll come up on Google.
If you're in a park, call the park. If you're in like a town site, it's likely, it depends on the state and the province and the territory and all of that kind of stuff. We have different government bodies that are responsible. Even if you call the wrong one, they'll just redirect you. So like down in the US, mostly it would be Fish and Game, I believe. Brian would know the answer to that one. He's on the call. And yeah, here in Canada, like Alberta, for example, we call Fish and Wildlife. So they would be responsible for Crown land and any municipal land bases. But provincial parks would be under the parks. You call the dispatch for the park, and national parks, you'd call the dispatch for the national park.
Mm-hmm. Woo, sorry. Does a cyclist cycling rapidly on a trail represent a cue to a bear or a cougar that you're trying to escape and thus tempt them to chase you down?
We think so. Certainly when we look at some of the attacks. Now, biking isn't a major cause of bear or cougar attacks, but we definitely have had cases, absolutely, like even just like the day before with a woman being chased by a cougar. I've heard of dozens of cases of people being chased by cougars on their bicycles or chased by a cougar when they were running. On bicycles, I've seen more cases of people actually hitting bears. Unfortunately, a friend of mine in 2007 was riding a bicycle in Banff National Park, and he was chased by a black bear and was treated as if he was food, and he was predated on, and he was very, very lucky to survive the attack.
All right, let's do one more. Sorry, guys, there's a million questions, but we also do, if you become a free membership on our website, you can write all your questions in the forum and Kim will get back to your questions there. Or you can message us on Instagram or wherever, social media. But this is a good one. If you're out hiking or working solo, would playing music be enough to create awareness that you're not prey?
I love this question. Somebody a few years ago ran into a cougar and played Metallica, and apparently it works. So Metallica works. No, this is just one person. I'm just joking. I wondered if Cardi B might work, but here's the real deal. When you aren't making noise, we do want you to be listening, right? So you're going like, what? If you suddenly hear something running through the bushes or crashing and running away from you, that's not good. Like, that's like, okay, there's an animal there. If you have earbuds in or you're blasting music on your shoulder with your smartphone, you now have lost one of your senses and you need to be listening. So when you aren't hollering, you are listening for the sounds of a branch breaking, a bush moving, the sounds of an animal chuffing at you or approaching you, and you won't hear that if you're playing music. Another thing you'll notice when you see people playing music when they're on the trail, you don't hear it until they're quite close to you. And bear bells, it's even worse. And I don't even hear the bear bells usually until the person's like 10 feet from me. So it's useless. Like, you're now going to get yourself into a close range encounter, and then that bear might judge you based on what kind of music you listen to. And I know bears really like heavy metal, but they don't like rap. So I'm just joking. That's not true. We have no idea. So forget the music. I'm really sorry. It's not a good idea.
Human voice, your voice.
Human voice.
All right,
Yeah.
let's do some giveaways.
Yay, thank you. So if you guys can stay for a couple more seconds, we're going to do some giveaways.
Yes, so we are going to give away a scat belt, which is a great holster that you can carry your bear spray with. And the winner of the scat belt is Daniel Buell. Daniel Buell.
Congratulations, Daniel.
By the way, I will contact you guys. You don't have to contact me, so don't worry about that. And we're also giving away our bear safety course. A few people were interested. Kim, if you could just give a brief like summary of what you teach in the bear safety course.
Oh, it's a great idea. Okay, so the first hour we get into bear ecology. We talk a little bit about the species and some of their seasonal changes. We talk about how to tell the difference between a black bear and a grizzly bear. Then we get into all the different types of food that they eat that we want you to be looking for as we go through the different seasons. And then we also want to really get into what to look for. So what their tracks look like, what their scat looks like, depending on the season, things that you need, hazards that you need to be watching for. We talk about some of the stats and some of the high risk behaviors that can lead to attacks. And then in the second hour, we get into the bear behavior, and we show multiple videos for you to understand what it looks like when a bear is defensive, if a bear is predatory, what it looks like if a bear is highly habituated to people. And we go through some of these scenarios. We also show video footage from people who have been interviewed, who have been attacked by bears, how they survive, what they learn from it. Then if you want to take our bear spray course, we get into some of the research on bear spray, its effectiveness. It's going to make you feel way more confident to carry it and to know how to use it, and interviews with people who have survived attacks using bear spray, and some interviews also with researchers who have been studying bear spray, its effectiveness. So you learn a lot in an hour. It's pretty cool. Yeah,
Definitely. And it does really make you feel more confident when you go out there. I found that when I did the course, because before I was just always in fear. But yeah, it definitely builds your confidence. So we are giving away one of each of our courses. So the bear spray course is going to go to Jacqueline Jacob. Jacqueline Jacob. And our bear spray course is going to go to Kevin Conroy.
awesome.
All right, so I will email those 3 winners. And then I'm also going to be sending out a thank you email. I'm actually going to send it tonight, just like right after this. And it's going to have the scat belt discount and the bear safety course discount as well for you guys.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Sarah, for doing that. That was great. And I really appreciate everyone being here tonight and for all your amazing questions. And I just wanted to answer all of them. And I hope to see you at the next talk. Our next talk, Sarah, is with Daryl again, which is awesome.
Yes. Our next talk is June 27th, and we have Daryl Radajak again. He just did a talk with us last month, and he's going to be talking about how cougars, bears, and wolves eat their prey and how they stash their prey and all the dynamics of eating their prey and everything. So very excited for that. Thank you so much.
All right, I hope to see you all at the next talk, and we've got some fun ideas for the next few months on some really cool talks to come up. And I definitely think we should have one on cougars specifically at some point. I think that would be really fun. And I hope you all have a great night. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you, Scat Belt, for donating a belt and for your discounts. And I hope to see you at the next talk. Take care, everyone.